There's been a lot of requests for a video about how to prune bonsai and what is the best time of the year to do it. And today we're going to take a look at how to prune your bonsai. And in this video, we'll cover all these topics, pruning the branches, the roots, even the trunk, and also when to do it, which is very important. Let's get started. First things first, if you want to prune your bonsai, you have to have sharp tools. This is one of the most important things because if you don't have sharp tools, you will damage your bonsai. So always sanitize your tools before and after use. If you don't, you'll get diseases like gnats and other stuff you really don't want. Now let's talk about the best time of the year to prune. That depends on the type of tree that you have. But in general, the best time of the year to prune is spring and summer. You should never prune during fall or winter, especially if you live in a place where it gets cold. You should never prune during the winter dormancy period because you can cause serious damage to the tree. And the reason why you can prune in the spring or summer is because that's when trees are growing. So you won't cause damage. Let's start with pruning the branches. One of the reasons you would want to prune the branches is because you have dead branches. And you can see here, this branch is dead. It's brown, it's not going to turn green, so you definitely want to cut that off. The other reason you want to prune branches is to control the size of the tree. Because the larger the branch is, the harder it is to make it smaller. So when the branches are small, you can just take off a little bit and then the branch will be smaller. Another reason you want to prune your branches is to change the shape of the tree. And here as an example of a tree that has grown out of shape because it was growing towards a window. And so it grew this way. So what you want to do is you want to prune those branches that are growing in the wrong direction and force it to grow the way that you want it. Here's another example of a tree that was pruned improperly. This person just went ahead and pruned everything off, but they didn't follow the basic rules of pruning. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be pruning a lot of branches. You only want to remove 1/3 of the foliage of the tree. If you take off more than that, you're going to stress the tree out too much and it may die. Also, you don't want to take off too much of the branches from one area. For example, if you're looking at this tree here, let's say you decided to prune all these branches off. You're taking off a lot from the left side and now there's nothing there. So the tree is going to be lopsided. So you never want to do that. So what you want to do is you want to take off a little bit from over here, a little bit from over here, and just keep it nice and balanced. The next thing you want to look for are crossing branches. These branches are crossing each other. They're rubbing against each other and eventually one will break off. So what you want to do is you want to look at these branches and decide which one you want to keep. Usually you want to keep the one that's stronger, the thicker one, and then you want to go ahead and prune the other one off. Now sometimes when you have two branches that are crossing each other, it's hard to decide which one you want to keep. In that case, you just cut them both. You cut them at an angle and now they'll grow up this way. So now you have 2 leaders instead of 1. Sometimes you don't want that, but sometimes it looks good depending on the style of bonsai that you're going for. Next, you want to look for water sprouts. Water sprouts are these branches that grow straight up from the trunk. They're not really attractive. You want to get rid of them. The best way to get rid of them is just to cut them off. However, if you have a tree like this, if you just go ahead and cut it off, you're going to leave this big wound here and it's not going to look good. So in this case, what you want to do is you want to do a technique called the thin branch technique. And what you do is you take off some of the bark around the branch and you expose the branch to the air. The reason why this works is because when you have a branch that grows into the shade, it becomes weak. When it's exposed to the air, it becomes strong and it turns into wood. So in this case, what you want to do is you want to take some of the bark off, expose the branch, and then prune off the water sprout above that. And now you have this strong branch, and this is going to help the tree look a lot better. Another thing you want to look for is suckers. Suckers are branches that grow below the graft. If you have a tree that's grafted and you have branches growing below the graft, you want to prune those off. The next thing you want to prune is the roots. The purpose of pruning the roots is to control the size of the tree. The larger the root system is, the larger the tree is going to be, so you want to keep the root system small. Another reason you want to prune the roots is to force the roots to grow towards the drainage holes. This is going to help your tree stay healthy and prevent it from becoming root bound. The last reason you want to prune the roots is to check for diseases and pests. Sometimes your pests and diseases start on your roots and spread up into the tree. You definitely don't want that. So you want to check for any sort of diseases or pests. In order to prune the roots, you need to take your tree out of the pot and you need to loosen up the soil. The easiest way to do this is to use a bamboo stake and just gently pry the roots away from the sides. Once you do that, you can see the roots and then you can start pruning them. There are 3 types of roots you need to look out for. The first one is the disease root. Disease roots are black and they're soft. They will feel mushy when you touch them and you want to remove those immediately. The second root you want to look for are the fine feeder roots. Fine feeder roots are what absorb water and nutrients for the tree. They're very important to the health of your tree. So you want to look at your feeder roots and make sure they're healthy. If you see any damaged feeder roots, you want to prune them off immediately. And the third root you want to look for are the thickest roots. Those are called the stilt roots, and the purpose of those roots is to hold up the tree. So you want to make sure those roots are healthy and they're strong. When you're pruning your roots, you never want to cut them off at a 45-degree angle like this. All you're gonna do is you're gonna cause the root to seal over and it's not gonna heal properly. So what you want to do is you want to prune your roots in a way that it looks like a fresh cut. So it should look like this. Now, if you prune the roots in a way that it looks like this, it's going to heal over and become stronger. So remember always to prune your roots at an angle and make it look clean. The last thing we need to talk about is pruning the leaves. Why would you want to prune the leaves? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First one is to control the size of the tree. If you don't prune your leaves, the tree is going to grow out of control. It's going to be too large. Another reason you want to prune your leaves is to shape the tree. If you prune your leaves in a certain way, you can actually shape the tree to look like whatever you want. And the last reason you would want to prune your leaves is to make it more dense. Sometimes your tree is sparse. It doesn't have enough leaves and you want to make it denser. So here's a tree that's too tall and lanky and we want to keep it smaller. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna prune off about 1/3 of the foliage. So we're gonna take our pruners and we're gonna take off about 1/3 of the foliage. And now the tree is gonna be smaller and more compact. Another thing you can do is you can take the branches and you can rotate them and you can kind of shape the tree to look however you want. So you can see that looks pretty good. So you could leave it like that. But maybe you want to make it a little bit shorter. So what you can do is you can take the top of the tree and you can just snip it off and you can shorten it a little bit. And so now the tree is shorter and it's also going to be denser. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends. Until next time, happy bonsaiing.